Yet inevitably, the troops had to leave their trenches and launch attacks against German positions. On March 3rd, Art Delaney and his squad did just that and were raked by machine gun fire.
The pain of being shot was not, in my case, wasn't that much, but the shock was interesting because the first bullet hit me in the groin, which is a very sensitive area for men, as you know. And the second one, as I spun around, hit me in the leg. So I laid out there a while, and gradually I got some help, and I got back up, and someone gave me a shot of morphine. Of the 12 men in the squad, 3 were killed and 7 were wounded, and that's what happens, you know, in the infantry and the ground forces and an attacking position.
Pete Seibert's war ended when a mortar barrage severely wounded him in the arm, the face, and the kneecap.
Some more shells came in and hit me several times in the chest and again in the hand and in the foot. And so I thought, well, you know, it's about time they dragged me out of here. This is enough's enough. And so on. I'm very lucky to have gotten through it all right.
The 10th was pushing relentlessly towards the last of the Apennine Mountains, claiming each hill and town as they went. In mid-March, they regrouped for a final push, digging in along the slopes of strategic Mount Della Spey. For the next month, Della Spey became home to soldiers like John Embry.
The top of this hill is honeycombed with foxholes. It's a question, can I find mine? My golly, that could be it. My golly, this could be it. At least I lived for 11 days in a foxhole very much like this one. This hill was littered with foxholes. And, of course, they were a little different then. Mine was about 4 feet deep, and we had logs over it with rocks on top of that to try to avoid tree bursts. That is to say, when an artillery shell hits these trees, they can explode there and shrapnel rain down on top of you, and you can be killed or wounded. My friend Vincent Sabine shared this hole with me, and the two of us lived here for 11 days. So it's something of an emotional experience to come back and remember that time. Living in almost 24 hours a day, at night crawling out to get food, bringing it back, eating cold food usually here, and knowing that across the way, the Germans, as usual, held the high ground and had artillery observation and mortars and artillery to come in and inflict serious casualties. Men were killed, friends of mine were killed 20 feet from this place.
As they waited, the Americans could clearly see their next big objective, the final set of hills in the Apennine Mountains. The 10th, along with all the other Allied divisions in Italy, would launch a spring offensive to smash through these hills and into the Po Valley. That would leave the Germans almost defenseless in Italy. The waiting Germans reinforced themselves for a last-ditch battle.
The enemy held all that high ground with heavy machine guns, mortars. Their artillery was back there, and they were in position to shell us and hit us, and we had to go down in front of all that and cross the valley and then attack up in the face of well-armed, well-entrenched German forces all along here.
Just before the 10th moved forward, Allied bombers hammered the German positions in waves. As soon as they were finished, Allied artillery opened up.
And in a few seconds, you heard the shells passing overhead, and then the whole hill erupted. And I thought, this is unbelievable. They're just going to be able to walk up. There can't be anybody left after that kind of attack. What you can sustain if you're dug in is just unbelievable. They came up out of their hole, they spotted me on the hill. Someone did. They dropped a mortar shell right on a tree right next to me. For some reason, I should have had my whole head blown off, but all it did is blow my eardrums out and prickle my head. And I dove into a foxhole. And 3 days later, I ended up in the hospital because my ears became infected, and I was out of it from then on.
As the 10th approached the target hills, the Germans opened up with everything they had.
That was really more of a suicide mission in retrospect. They had every avenue, every approach zeroed in with mortars.
That was the experience I'll never forget. I think of it every day. The command came to charge. I think I only got something like 5 steps when I took my bullet. Went in 2 inches below my tit. Just put 2 fingers like that, put the one on the tit, the other one is where it went in. If you come around, put your hand horizontally across your back, 2 inches from my spine. And I remember coming to with a light in my face, and the doctor saying, name, rank, serial number, which is the way they find out if you're awake or not.
Hey.
And I told him, and then I mumbled about the morphine that my friend had given me, and then I passed out.
In the drive to take Hill 913, a young lieutenant who had joined the 10th only a few weeks earlier was leading his platoon down this mountainside when German machine gun bullets tore into his upper body. The lieutenant's name was Bob Dole, and the Italian townspeople have erected a monument on the spot where the future presidential candidate was hit.
Anyone who's had a near-death experience, you have all your past sort of rushing by. I mean, I thought of my dog and my parents and the little house we lived in Russell, Kansas. It just sort of all this rushes by. And then I don't remember really anything for quite a while, because I think I was pretty well doped up on morphine. But, and I remember I couldn't move my arms there above my head, and I didn't know what had happened.
What Lieutenant Dole was doing was leading his men down that incredibly steep slope. And at the bottom of the slope, a sniper's bullet hit him in the arm. He was wounded seriously, spent time here in the ground, and eventually he was taken to an aid station right down the road.
And what they were trying to do was cross through the valley here and aim and attack that hill and take that hill from the Germans and move through heavy fields of fire.
That's a very steep hill.
I know.
And there are Germans up there with machine guns covering every part of the field. There are minefields they had to go through.
That's right.
Most of his company was wiped out on that hill.
I know.
Bob Dole's wounds to the neck and shoulder kept him in Army hospitals for 4 years, and he lost much of the use of his right arm.
Did a lot of things, a lot of exercise. First I could walk, then I could sort of feed myself, and then with the aid of a button hook I could button my shirt. But I tried all kinds of things, Velcro, so I wouldn't have to button and all these things. But it was a long process as I look back on it.
Bob Dole did not fall alone that day in 1945. By nightfall, April 14th had become the bloodiest day in the 10th Division's history. But the price paid would bring its reward. The Allies' spring offensive in 1945 against the German army in the Apennine Mountains was nothing less than a battle to decide the fate of Italy. If the Allies could break the German line, they would have an almost clear run to the Alps. Knowing this, the Germans fought fiercely, and the toll on the men of the 10th Mountain Division was horrific.
I stand up, and at that time, either I get hit by a grenade, which is only 15 feet away, or I get hit by a mortar, or the man behind me stepped on a mine. But everybody, excepting myself, is killed. So we have hardly anybody in that whole field. Nobody's alive. And then just mortar shells came in, mortar shells, till finally they stopped and got up and got out of there.
On the next hillside, there was a feat of individual bravery that won the division its only Congressional Medal of Honor. Private John McGrath's company was pinned down by machine gun fire.